Ninja Garrisons. This topic has been at the heart of Hell-Reduced discussions and feedback ever since the game launched in early access. It's probably the single most contentious issue on the Hell-Reduced Discord, one that sparks debate and arguing every single time it's brought up. And I can't imagine how the developers over at Black Matter even begin to deal with the amount of feedback that they must be getting both for and against this issue. In case you're new to the game or just never heard the term before, let me explain what Ninja Garrisons are and why they are a problem. Ninja Garrisons are garrisons that are built quickly and covertly in enemy territory, generally by a single squad or by the commander, with the goal of mass redeploying the entire team into the enemy sector, quickly overwhelming the enemy team and causing you to cap the sector very easily without having to actually fight for control of the map. A couple of updates ago, with update 7, the ability to build garrisons in enemy territory was completely removed, which obviously eliminated the problem entirely. No garrisons in enemy territory means no ninja garrisons. However, the inability to create garrisons in the red zones creates another type of problem. The problem is, the grids on the map are completely arbitrary, so which part is red and which part is blue is largely an abstraction, even though it's supposed to denote each team's control of the map. Obviously, a static line drawn across the map will fail to represent the actual position of each team on the map, especially when it comes to successful flanks. With this rigid limit on where each team can build garrisons, matches became way more stale. Once a team would cap the middle point at the start of the game, it would be extremely hard for the other team to ever be able to cap it back, since the lack of garrisons on offensive ground vastly favored the defending team. And the same goes for the last two sectors of the map. The team controlling the middle point would find it extremely hard to push forward. It's easy to see why this would be the case. The defensive team could have up to 8 garrisons set up on defense, plus whatever OPs the squad leaders had lying around. Let's say there's 6 squads in each team, that means 8 team-wide spawns and 6 squad-specific spawns to be able to respawn and fight back. Meanwhile, the attacking team could only rely on the more limited and fragile nature of the OPs for the entirety of their attacking force. So 6 spawns against a total of 14. The competitive scene was particularly affected by this, as almost every match ended without any team being able to successfully capture a sector held by the other team. Other issues such as weapon and armor balance made it so the winning team was almost always the allied, but I think balance changes on recent updates might have solved that problem. Now, I know that a lot of people don't care about the competitive scene, but this effect was felt in public matches as well. All you needed to do to win a public match was to have one good squad stay on defense and replace any garrisons that were destroyed by enemy attacks. With about 4 or 6 garrisons placed in and around the middle sector, the attacking team would have to destroy every single one to be able to gain the numerical advantage needed to capture. With a good squad keeping the number of garrisons at a healthy level, this would be nearly impossible. Big asterisk here though, obviously squads don't always fall back to defend, especially in public matches, but that only highlights the problem even more. Whenever you managed to wrestle a sector out of enemy control, it more often than not had to do with the enemy team failing to fall back than with your attack actually managing to destroy all spawn points or making, some damage. So even though the problem was less pronounced in public matches, it was still an issue, and it could get extremely frustrating to be part of a great attack that managed to push back the enemy team and yet failed to capture the point. Update 7 also introduced Airheads, which are in essence the ultimate ninja garrison. Airheads are, as the name would imply, airdropped garrisons that last for only a few minutes, allowing a reduced amount of spawn waves to take place. This limitation is kinda insignificant for the most part, since once deployed, a squad leader can drop their outpost and get a permanent spawn on the map. And more importantly, unlike ninja garrisons, they can be dropped wherever without needing any type of presence on the ground. So, in a way, while Update 7 successfully eliminated the Ninja Garrison problem, it also introduced an equally powerful replacement for them. I'm not a fan of the airhead mechanic precisely because it requires no map control. Ninja Garrisons at least required you to be able to sneak past the enemy to actually walk to a good location. Airheads remove that effort entirely. Despite the airheads, the Update 7 meta was still grindy and lethargic because, as I mentioned earlier, Garrisons provided teams a significant advantage on defense. Fast forward to Update 9 and now we are at a sort of middle point. You can build Garrisons on enemy territory, but you need 100 supplies, so 50 more than usual, and Garrisons are disabled if there's an enemy unit within 100 meters, which is roughly the size of a grid square, so it's quite easy for them to get disabled unless you actually have control of the surrounding area. This seems like a great way to eliminate the issue of Ninja Garrisons, but they can still be built and they are still a thing. The other day I was playing Utah Beach on offensive mode and the commander snuck in the back of the enemy team a whole sector away from where the action was and was airdropping supplies everywhere to be able to build these Ninja Garys later on in the match. Once the first sector got capped, the commander was immediately able to create garrisons completely behind the enemy lines, back at the edge of the sector and spawn the entire team behind them. Since offensive mode is so focused on the front line by its very nature, his supply drops went completely unnoticed by the enemy team. There was no recon teams to catch them, nobody building nodes or defensive structures, nothing that would have made it easier for the defending team to notice them. This is in part a failure of the defensive team because they clearly did what 99% of the teams playing offensive do. They focused on stopping the enemy at the edge of the map and didn't prepare any defenses to fall back on. However, the problem still remains. The way the rules are now set enable this kind of quote-unquote exploiting of the garrison system to produce these obviously unintended results. Now, gamers are always going to find a way to break a game's rules, and Hell Let Loose is obviously no different. As far as I'm aware, this isn't really a problem in Warfare mode, or at least not a significant one, because Warfare generally has a lot more people running around everywhere as both teams are trying to flank each other constantly, making supply drops way easier to spot. Also, as teams are more spread out and not focusing as much on the strong points themselves, that means any ninja garrisons can easily get disabled by spreading out across a sector. As you can see, the problem remains. You are still able to pull off ninja garrisons if the right conditions present themselves. In fact, the airhead is maybe the easiest way to get one of these ninja garrisons down. Just drop supplies next to an airhead or tell a squad leader to have support players drop supplies when they spawn and boom, you got yourself a garrison. So, what is the actual solution to this problem? It's clearly not a simple question. Take away the ability to build garrisons in enemy territory and the game becomes artificially constrained by the placement of lines on a map. Allow them and then you have Solid Snake running around spawning the entire enemy team behind your back. In the Hell Let Loose Kickstarter page, there's this map which is quite different from what we have today and it shows one possible solution to the problem. What if you could cap each grid square individually instead of needing to cap the whole sector? This would properly reflect map control and could therefore enable garrisons to only be built in what is actually your team's territory, not the enemy's. This added flexibility of the frontline would completely solve the issue of ninja garrisons, as you would have to actually take control of the map, both in actual gameplay sense and in terms of the artificial game overlay that defines garrisons rules. But once again, there is a downside. How would this allow for a surprise flanking attack? As soon as you start flanking, you'd start capping sectors, unintentionally revealing your presence to the enemy by turning the map red wherever you go. So there should be some sort of delay between your map and the enemy's map, showing you capping the sector but not revealing that to the enemy, something like a fog of war in RTS games like Warcraft and Command & Conquer. This seems like the ideal scenario, and yet imagine trying to explain how all of this works to a new player who is already struggling to understand how everything else works in the game. Maybe it's just a matter of removing the airheads and only allowing garrisons to be built if there's a full squad nearby. This would require an entire squad to control the map around them, to be able to field a garrison, and the 100-meter disabling rule would allow a defensive team to counteract a quick and easy deployment. But what if that has other unintended consequences as well? How many times can you change the rules without frustrating the player base by having them relearn how to play the game with each new update? The goal of this video isn't to solve this problem, but rather to increase the understanding, to bring some light to how difficult the problem actually is, and to show that there's no magic solution that can address every issue successfully. As I said at the start of the video, this is a highly debated issue, one that must trouble the minds of the devs just as it does those of the player base. Clearly, everyone wants a game that's both balanced and rewards good gameplay, while also limiting cheap tricks and exploits. Achieving that, however, is not as easy as one would think. I think where we are now, where the game has evolved to, is a way better place to be than where we were a few months ago. We still need more time to properly judge Update 9, as matches right after an update drops, and especially during a free weekend, tend not to represent the game accurately. So what I'm trying to say is that I'm hopeful. I'm hopeful and optimistic about the direction of the metagame, but that requires patience. Patience to understand that change isn't easy and communication is even harder. I'm optimistic about the fact that the devs clearly care about the game that they are making and are obviously aware of the feedback and the current problems. We as players need to give feedback, but also give the game proper thought and understand that changing one thing can have repercussions on the game as a whole. Alright, hopefully you guys enjoyed this explanation / discussion of the issue. I'm interested in what you guys all think about this, so please leave your comments down below. And hey, if you like the channel and would like to support it, please consider becoming a member or catch me on one of my live streams to say hi. As always, thank you for watching, and I hope I will catch you in the next one.